Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Wednesday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Ellen calling in from the tropical island of St. Bart's, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Dennis, coming to you from the quaint area of Soho in Lower Manhattan, where at one time the Dutch bought the entire island for $24. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers
and Sister.
That's right, Ellen. And welcome, everyone, to episode 473. Unfortunately, without Brother David, but we'll carry on without.
Do you remember when they spent that $24?
They put it in the bank. It's still compounding.
And you know what? I think that's one of those urban wives' tales. I think it was a couple $1,000s, and to whatever reason, $24 was the...
I didn't actually think they had money. I thought it was like corn and tobacco and...
Yeah, it was beads and jewels and crap like that.
Well, in that time period, $24 was worth approximately $1,400 in today's money.
That's it?
That was a lot of money, man, for just a little swampy place that flooded every now and then. I mean, for $1,400, that can get you a lot of...
A nice dinner in New York City for two.
You know, it's ironic, isn't it? That's probably about what it does cost at a really great restaurant in New York.
I'm currently in the Disney building that was just built in Soho doing a job. And this whole city block building, I think they spent $4 billion on.
My God.
So things have gotten much more expensive on the island of Manhattan.
New Amsterdam.
Wow.
Oh, there you go.
So I noticed that, now that we have decided to broadcast on Wednesdays, I thought we would take a look at important things besides us that have happened on Wednesdays. So this day in history, Wednesday the 29th in 1913, the zipper was patented. So there you go.
I think that's very interesting. Costume designers around the world should be happy to hear that news.
Anything else important, Steve?
No. What about the NAB Convention?
Oh, that's right. Everybody and their brother who's involved in the broadcasting world is currently in Las Vegas, home of the one and only true conference, LDI. But they're all faking it out there for the NAB show, which is actually a very large broadcasting conference where all the manufacturers, camera companies, various engineers, owners, managers from networks and affiliates around the country go to see the latest wares and hear the seminars and speeches that people have to offer about where the broadcast industry is going.
And where they think it's going this year is AI.
You've nailed it, Ellen. From the reports I saw from day one yesterday, that's what a lot of the conversation is.
Yep.
AI and how AI is going to be taking over everything.
Yep. It says from enhancing storytelling to personalizing viewer experiences, combating disinformation and streamlining production to increasing revenue opportunities, AI technologies have become indispensable tools for business leaders and creators across the entire content ecosystem, from content creation to consumption. And NAB is really, really pushing that access to the technology, training, and harnessing the full potential of AI. So that ought to be interesting to see what comes out of there.
I think AI is Satan. I was just looking at a clip online, and Meta AI did a deep dive into Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and talked about the scene I was looking at and really went into great detail with it. The problem is that the video clip wasn't 2001: Space Odyssey. It was George Powell's 1955 Conquest of Space.
Oh,
so if
no.
they can't even get a movie right, I mean, I don't want them operating on my kidneys or something, or showing me how to light in the style of David Jacques.
Well, they also say that if you check a fact on ChatGPT, to then go check it at the source, not to really take it for gospel.
Ellen, do you use anything that gets discussed as a foreboding of the future at NAB when you're planning LDI. I'm sure you're starting to plan LDI now, aren't you?
Yes, but we were way ahead of the game because we have an event that's called X Live, and it's a little bit of a standalone conference within LDI. And last year, it was every year for a couple years, it had a different sort of tagline. And one year it was the metaverse. And then 2 years ago, it was AI. And all of our sessions were about AI in our side of the industry. And then last year, we rebranded it as the concert touring sessions. I think we're going to stick with that for a while and see how AI, there might be a session on AI in there. But it's the same thing. I think in the beginning, people were really afraid that it was going to take over their job. And in spite of David's wish for a console you can talk to, I think a lot of people have realized that it's really a tool for your toolbox and it's not really going to replace you. Although I do have to say that there are some jobs that just do not exist anymore thanks to AI, one of which I used to do a lot of, which was translation from French to English, mostly for tourist magazines and newsletters and stuff like that. And now it's all done via either ChatGPT or DeepL or some other translating thing. And sometimes the mistakes are hilariously funny, but 95% of it is pretty good.
I think it was Kat Morrell, one of our guests on a recent show, that said regarding AI consoles, you can't go to supper with an AI console.
Right, exactly.
But you can with the programmer.
Right.
And I have used that several times since our show.
Yeah. Well, if that kind of console comes into popularity, the LD may just have to go to dinner with somebody else.
Oh, I have some old news that I'm just aware of, much to my chagrin. We know how a number of Chinese manufacturers are ripping off Grand MA and making Grand MA consoles and putting them out there. I just saw an interesting article that they were also and have been attacking ETC and making up kind of rip-off ETC consoles and selling them the same way they've been doing Grand MA.
And all kinds of fixtures.
That is such a sad state of affairs.
I thought it was getting better because most of the manufacturers use the Chinese companies to OM their products.
Well, I'm sure it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
Someone sees a way to make a quick buck.
Right. Well, I told you that there was a lighting designer who went to China to do a big ballet project. And when they went to the Chinese rental shop, there were big road cases marked Clay Packy. And he said, "Oh, good, I'll take those fixtures." And the guy from the rental shop said, "Yeah, Clay Packy on the outside, not on the inside."
George Masick will be glad to hear
Yes. I have other news that I think Dennis should share with us. We understand you got an award this week.
Oh, yes, an award that I wasn't even aware of. There's an award called the DuPont Columbia Award, which was founded back in the 40s about upholding standards in journalism. And the winners are basically honored for informing the public about contributions supporting journalism, education, and innovative it was originally for journalism, and it's been extended to broadcasting. The awards are administered by Columbia University School of Journalism, and it now includes national and local news outlets around the country. Anyway, some friends of mine at ABC News told me that that debate we did, which we talked about on this show in an episode 2 years ago, because it was back in 2024, the one and only debate that was between Trump and Harris, was the recipient of an award for the presidential debate, and it's essentially a team award. Producers, directors, the designers were all incorporated, and I was a recipient as the lighting designer for that. It was exciting to hear, and
Well,
I got this wonderful
congratulations.
certificate, and
That's great.
it's interesting because I had not heard of the award until we had Eric Siegel on, and he had mentioned that he was a recipient of several, being a director of news specials. And I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. And then next thing I know, I'm getting an award in the mail.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, that's
Thank you,
lovely.
Steve.
Very nice.
It is exciting, and I appreciate the accolade because, as you know, that particular debate was most interesting. I had actually asked the producer, what was it that made that production award worthy, and apparently, from what was said at the ceremony, what was said is the singular production provided a vital opportunity and the only opportunity for Americans to see the two presidential candidates debate. And the program was meticulously prepared, skillfully and fairly moderated, and most importantly, made widely and freely available to each and every network and platform, ensuring it reached the greatest possible number of voters. And kudos to ABC for doing that at the time, and congratulations to all involved for receiving the award. I just feel that although I appreciate it, that I kind of rode in on the other people's coattails.
Well, if they couldn't see it, they couldn't see it. So,
You know what? You are 100% right there.
Yeah, they didn't put that hourglass lighting in that you did, not clock face lighting that you did.
There you go. Good memory, Steve.
right. There you
Well,
go.
if you're going to, I'm going to steal from the best. So, when I do a debate, I am going to reference that light plot.
Go for it.
Well, Ellen, I guess you have our first question today.
I certainly do. Sean from Delaware has written in and says, "It is great having Dennis Size join the show. I would like to ask him how television lighting has changed in the LED era and what differences he sees in the way he designs." Well, Sean is really in luck because I have right to the front of me the one and only award-winning Dennis Size.
Wow.
There you
Talk
go.
about putting me on the spot after touting my horn. It's interesting. And I happen to be at ABC today doing a podcast studio. And the producer asked me something similar to that question because the small podcast studio has all LED fixtures and wanted to know how I like working with them. And I said, you know what? I really hate it. This is a small room. And as you know, the LED fixtures have power and data. In the old days, we used to just hang a light and plug it into a dimmer in a circuit in the ceiling or run it to dimmer rack somewhere. Now, in addition to running the power, you got to run low voltage data because we don't hang lights anymore. We hang computers. So it's a big pain in the butt, to be honest, because you got two cables going in and two cables going out to the other fixtures. And all that extra cable management can make for a pretty ugly looking grid. And the networking of where the data lines go and the universes that you want to use needs to be seriously considered, which, all of a sudden now when I'm doing a project, I have to bring DMX specialists and network specialists in to do all the networking because I'll tell you, all those numbers and the number crunching is far beyond what my old brain is capable of doing. But over and above the technical infrastructure involved with the LED fixtures, one of the things that bothered me when we first started using LEDs a couple of years ago, and I actually had this pointed out by a client in a corporate studio who looked up at the lights and said, "Why do all those lights have little dots in them? I hate lights with dots in them. What are all those dots all about?" If you remember, the original LED fixtures, they didn't have the power to do a single source chip or LED source. So there were all sorts of sources that were put in, many of which were different colors, whether it was red, green, blue, white, amber, to mix the various colors that were used. But what I found odd, many, many, many LDs, the real professionals, as opposed to hacks like me, will always use a light meter and they'll measure it. And I will occasionally use a color meter, but very seldom use a light meter because after years of doing this, I always knew what a 2,000-watt tungsten quartz Fresnel would do from a grid at 16 feet, or what a LECO, 750 ETC source 4 was going to do with a certain lens in it at however many feet. And once we started using LEDs, it was very hard to understand those intensities and how much intensity was going to be needed and what type of fixture and the mix of LEDs in that fixture was required. So I found myself having to go back to meters and really measure the light source, because it's a very different intensity scale than it used to be with tungsten fixtures or metal halide or even fluorescent fixtures. The LEDs themselves certainly do provide a lot of versatility, especially when it comes to the world of color changing. And even in the studios, if you're doing, let's say, an anchor desk that has 4 different anchors at it. And for example, right now, as you see behind me, I'm sitting in the Good Morning America studio at the actual anchor desk where George Stephanopoulos and Robin Roberts and Michael Strahan and Lara Spencer would sit. Because the LEDs can indeed tune the color temperature, the lights that are hitting each of those people are tuned to their faces, which makes it a lot more efficient and a lot easier. I mean, the skin tone that Michael Strahan has, outside of being African-American and darker skin, is very much different from George Stephanopoulos in terms of the way it perceives color and the way the flesh tone reflects color back into the camera. So I'm able to tune the green, shall we say, or tune the pink to make sure that the color of the light hitting the person properly reflects how that face should be in as glamorous a way as possible. Years ago, Roscoe and Lee had a color correction frost that was called Cosmetic Highlight. And people used to joke that I was the king of cosmetic highlight, which the Lee number was 188 at the time, because when it came out, I had just been doing the Oprah Winfrey show, and Oprah's skin had a kind of a bluish reddish pigment in it that was too cool, and we wanted to warm it up. So instead of putting what would be a color correction, a pink in there to minus the green, we put Lee 188 Cosmetic Highlight in all of the lights in the studio, so that there was a warm quality that was tailored for her face alone. You don't have to do that anymore. Color correction in the broadcast studios has pretty much gone the way of the dodo bird, because you can color correct the fixtures thanks to the innovations of LEDs. So that certainly is a good point. And in the current technology, the intensities are much, much, much better. I know you do some film work, Steve. Do you feel that it's the same?
Well, I have the advantage, as you do, of looking through a camera and seeing exactly what it's looking like. You know, it's funny because last night I was working on something and I had my cell phone out because I was worried about that thing about what's it going to look like when people are recording it on their cell phones and trying to stream it. And I was looking at, the balance of the lights, and, some of the stuff was, if you look at it with your eye, it's fine. If you look at it with your little Apple phone, not so much. So I was having to correct for that. The question I have for you is, someone who's just getting started in your industry, what are you seeing your assistants or what have you bought for yourself in the way of a color meter?
I still use a color meter that I bought several years ago, the Minolta color meter digital, and it serviced me well when the LEDs first came out. And I'll be honest, even though I joke about not having a color meter, and a lot of the gaffers I work with say Dennis's eyes are a better meter than the meters are, I find that if I'm doing green screen work where it's really meticulous, it has to be very specific in terms of intensity and color and flat field across the screen, I'll pull out a meter to make sure. But I don't use a digital light meter for intensity. I still have my Sekonic meter that's serviced me well for years. But a lot of the guys in our company have the combination light meter, color meter that Minolta makes, which is a favorite of a lot of people. But again, you're talking about expensive meters. It's what, $1,500, $1,800 for a meter? It's pretty pricey.
I bought my first Sekonic light meter with a little button on it in the hand that sweeps across. I've forgotten what the model number
Yep.
was.
That's the one, the needle.
I got that in 1977 when I was at Opryland Productions that became Nashville Network. And that was like the greatest moment of my life was having a meter. Barely knew how to use it.
It's probably the 358. That was the main analog meter that was the favorite of the time. And it's still used. It's a favorite of a lot of people.
Still works for me on the limited stuff I do.
Dennis, you mentioned Lee 188 and a Roscoe as in gels. Do you, when designing with the LED, still think in gel colors?
I do, yes.
How does that impact what you're doing?
What you'll find on the consoles is you have a color wheel, or you'll have a color picker where you can say, hey, give me Roscoe 80. There's no way in hell does it ever match. However, as a frame of reference, you're laughing because you know I'm right, Steve.
That's the most wasted bit of space on the console is the color picker.
It totally is. But again, it's one of those things that if somebody says, hey, what kind of car do you drive? You can say, oh, I have a Lamborghini or I have a Camry. They know what you're talking about. So if I'm doing something and I'll tell my programmer, look, I want a blue, something in the line of like a Roscoe 80. If it's a older person, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and they'll be able to start tuning the LEDs to something close to that. Or if it's a younger person, then I have issues because the younger people, especially those who graduated during the pandemic, they don't have experience with color media and swatch books. It's not that I still carry a swatch book around with me. And I think, Steve, you mentioned that in a recent show that you still carry a swatch book.
Yeah, you need some free labor. Get yourself some students and a big old bag of gel and say, go ahead and make these work. Go ahead and put those values into the console. I used to do that with, the Morpheus color fader. I had hundreds and hundreds of colors pre-built on a thumbstick that I could just stick in and dial up what I wanted.
And I'll tell you, Ellen, a lot of times if I'm doing a show where they're going to be, let's say a show like Good Morning America, where there's performances and you're setting up a library of gimmicks and special effects, I'll say, hey, we're going to need to have a Roscoe 80 available. We're going to need to have a 302 amber available or 321 amber, stuff like that. We might not hit the actual color that it is, but I will call it that as a frame of reference so that when we're doing something in the future, I'll say, give me my 321 or give me my Roscoe 64 blue or whatever it is, so that we have something that's a frame of reference that's already pre-built. It's the same as what I call TV white. A lot of studios, and this is where the color meter comes in with the LEDs, these days, we don't really do the studios at 3,200 Kelvin, which would have been a tungsten equivalent, nor do we do them at 5,600, which is a daylight equivalent, because it's just too cold. So we'll settle in somewhere in the 4,000 range so that the video walls, which are in every studio, can be easily adjusted. It's very hard to get the video walls down at 2,500 Kelvin or 3,000 Kelvin, but you can get them low enough in the 4,000 range. The point being, whenever I establish the color temperature in the studio, we will call that TV white. And that's the white that gets used in that studio, so that I don't have to in the future say, hey, I want that to be 4,500 or this is 4,900. Give me the TV white, which is kind of like saying, give me color correction CTB or something. But at least that way it's already programmed into the console and all the LEDs can be set to TV white. That being said, we will pull out a meter because you'll find that an elation ellipsoidal, the TV white that you set is not the same as the TV white in, let's say, a Luster 3 or in another Lico. It ends up the LED sources are always a bit different in the fixture, so we have to calibrate the TV white based on that fixture, and then that'll get put into the file in the console. which is another problem going back to the original question with the LEDs. They're not all compatible from different companies. And if you're trying to establish white, and this is something, whether it's a TV studio or a theatrical, a theater scenario, you need to establish what you're calling white light. And that needs to be programmed into the console for the specific fixtures, or they won't all match.
That's the thing that I find strange with students is I'll say, what is that, god-awful color on stage? And they'll go, oh, that's fixture white. Well, fine for a demo room, but that can't be your white base. And you've got to make your white base and not rely on some blue light that so-and-so calls white on their LED fixtures.
It's not only the white, but it's the color, too. I remember a couple years ago at USITT, Ken Billington had a long lineup of various fixtures and put the same red in them, and everyone was a slightly different color on the wall.
Because of the nature of the source itself.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Yep. Interesting.
Right.
So,
and I'm not trying to pick on any one manufacturer, but Steve will remember this in the days of the Altman 360Q. I mean, the white light coming out of that was green, predominantly because of the lens. The light source is going through a lens that had a slight tint to it. And you need, back in those days, that affected the color of the gel that you put on it.
Sure.
well, interesting. Sean, you brought up a very good subject, and I recommend that if you make it from Delaware to New York one day, you call up Dennis and take him out to lunch and continue the conversation.
We'll go see some LED studios,
Right.
Sean.
Well, I have our next question, and this is Larry in El Paso, and he writes, I'm going to busk my first show down at the Country Bar. Do you have any tips? Well, yes, I do have some tips. You're going to need to prep a bit. So you're going down there at the Country Bar, I assuming you're doing a country band, then you really need at minimum, you need to have 3 kind of busking ideas in mind. So you need at least 3 pages of subs to set up to do what you're doing. I would say you start off with a good country love song look, a good country cheatin' look, and a good country yee-haw look. And those are the 3 things you can work with all night. Now, other than that, if this is truly your first busk, I'm saying a prayer to the lighting gods that you're familiar with the console you're about to go in and work on. The first step to a successful busk is to know your console. So you need to have muscle memory on that thing. Once you organize your screen layout, once you've done that and minimum effort is being made on your part to move around the screen, either by touching it or by mouse, once you've got a great layout, you save that layout and you repeat it over and over as you busk in the future until you find something better, kind of like how you build your magic sheet. I would build a cue list specific to your fixture package, and then I would build effects and color palettes also. One of the things that some young buskers get into trouble with is they don't build a base cue to work off of. You want a base cue, and then you want to build your busk on top of that cue. Also, you want a base cue to default to if you get lost. Think of that base cue as an off-ramp in case of complete disaster. And I would assume that you kind of understand how music works. And you start thinking about what are the parts of music. You have an introduction, you have verses and choruses. The verse is the thing that kind of tells the story. And the chorus is the thing that you're singing over and over in the car as you drive home. The chorus is that big high energy hook that the audience is waiting for. And then it goes back to a verse. The verses build tension, and they set up the chorus. And then you need to learn what a bridge is. And that's kind of important. The bridge is telling you we're about to make a big musical change in this song. Usually the bridge comes after the second or third chorus. You're going to once you know what you're listening for, you're going to recognize that it's going to be some kind of chord progression. It's going to be a tempo change. It's going to be some kind of dynamic change in the music. It's kind of a reset moment so you can really take the song someplace else in the outro. And since you're working at a bar, and I don't know if you're busking someone you've worked with before or you're just walking in and there's going to be a band on stage, I would avoid blackouts. I would have that default cue to go to, that big transition look at the end of song 1, so the band doesn't take off in the blackout starting song 2 and you're not ready for them. And finally, when you get to the bar and you have no idea who this band is, you need to walk up and ask for a set list. And if nothing else, they give you the set list and it still means nothing to you. You can say, okay, let's identify what are the high energy songs? What are the ballad songs? What are the kind of quiet featured solo songs? And if you know that, at least, I don't know, you're bringing up some blue light instead of spinning gobos for the quiet featured solo. And I would say the biggest thing is to keep it simple. Have fun, no regrets until the show is over. If you do something that's a disaster, you've got to live with it and move on. You can't go back and fix it. What I see young people doing or inexperienced people doing is they make a big mistake and they just freak out over it. And then they're frozen thinking about, oh, I shouldn't have brought up the psych in that moment. I've screwed the song up. The song is still going. The band's still playing. You're still moving forward. So no looking back, no doubting yourself in this. So that's what I would say if you were going to busk your first show. Ellen, you've been at LDI for a while. What have you noticed about Battle of the Bands and all that busking that they do? I mean, they spend about a week learning.
Well, they do. They spend about 3 days training on the console so that they're really proficient. Many of them have never seen the console before, and they really get into it, and they have a lot of fun with it. And I don't think they know what the music is ahead of time. So it is a true busk. And the results have been amazing. So I think you're right. Just, go with it. Be familiar with your console. In that case, they can't even be familiar with the music. But I hope that in this El Paso case, he knows the band, right? I mean, he knows the music.
Hope so.
Yeah, that helps, right? But for the Battle of the Busk and the VJ Challenge at LDI, they're thrown the music by the DJ. And I don't think they know what they're getting to busk to until they're actually doing it. It's a true busk. And the results have been amazing.
I'm teaching a busking class right now over at Verilight. And I tell the students, man, it's time you're in your bedroom at home. You're dancing like no one's watching. Just don't leave it all on the field.
Right.
And just keep moving forward.
Go with it. Go with the flow.
When you're teaching that course, Steve, do you have now Larry is obviously inexperienced, but the more inexperienced programmers that I work with usually come with a library of gimmicks that they've already pre-programmed. When you're teaching busking, do you have them build their collection of gimmicks of zippers and ballyhoos and sweeps of light so that they have something at their disposal to call upon?
Sure, and their color also. So they have a very tight, 8 or 9 colors. I mean, if you can, one of the things that the disaster, if you're just getting started, disaster is that you have to, go through 4 or 5 sub menus to get someplace. You don't want that at all.
Right.
You don't want 200 looks and you're trying to scroll through a screen to find look 197 because this is the perfect look for, 5 minutes ago, but not for right now. I know people who come in and they work on a Hog or they work on a Grand MA and they have their show file with them based on that club, and they plug it in and they have that whole vocabulary set up. I mean, that's what when I say getting back to muscle memory, that's what it's all about. Where do your hands go? If you're staring at your hands all the time, you're probably not ready to busk that show. You kind of want to know where things are and be watching the stage and being part of the event as opposed to staring at your fingers.
Yeah.
So you're recommending that they do some preset work before and not just show up with an empty console.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think if you just, I think you have to preset and build the bases that you're working off of. That's when it is, if I were busking a country band that I didn't know, then I really would set up a love song set of looks and a cheatin' song set of looks. And
So the
big,
rhythms are already there.
yeah, the foundation, the skeleton is there.
Would you talk to the band and find out about color choices and what they might like?
It's been a long time since I've been at that level, but I always talk to the band about what their opinions are and where we're going with the evening. What I'm finding is maybe the days of busking in the way that we're talking about, it's gone. Most of the bands who drift into Dallas have an LD with them. They have their own. The LD owns their own Grand MA. They plug into the house system. They spend some time with that rig, putting it into their console and building off of that.
A lot of times I think the bands will have some sort of information or knowledge. I remember years ago, I had been filling in on Good Morning America. This is like 30 years ago. And they used to do, and they still do, performances every couple days. And truly, it's busking. I mean, you get the songs before the show or the night before. You end up getting one shot at a rehearsal, and then you're on the air. So you have to pre-package stuff. But I remember we were doing a performance with Creedence Clearwater Revival, and John Fogerty said, I need to talk to the lighting designer. So they sent him my way. And he said, the last time I was on this show, they used a very ugly orange color on me, and I hated it. Don't use that color. So you do get a certain amount of input from people. Anyway, you are listening to Light Talk with Steve, Dennis, and our sister Ellen. Today, Light Talk is sponsored by...
We have a public service announcement from No More, 10 out of 12s. How to focus stage lights. One of the most confusing moments in the life of a stagehand comes when he or she is called upon to focus a stage light. Let's take a close look at the 9 steps in focusing. Step number 1, safety. Safety cables are for the weak. If the light falls, that's just dramatic staging or God's will. Just ask the folks at the Coachella Festival. Step 2, power consumption. Turn everything on at full intensity instantly, ideally while staring directly into the beam to assert your dominance. It's best if you turn on multiple lights at the same time on the same electric so they can warm up while waiting for the genie lift to be brought out of storage. At the least, turn on the next light to full while the first light is still being focused. Remember, gloves are for sissies. Step 3. Locate the vibe spot. Forget the designer. Aim the light wherever it feels emotionally correct. Ceiling, audience, backstage snack table. Trust your instincts, and when the designer says, "How does that look?" remember to say, "Perfect." Step 4. Pan and tilt. Loosen every knob completely so the fixture swings like a chandelier in a haunted mansion. Extra points if you drop the hardware. Step 5, beam size. Randomly adjust knobs until something happens. If the beam changes, nod knowingly like you planned it and say, "How about that?" Step 6, shutters. Who needs shutters? Shutters are confusing. Shutters are optional. Let the light spill everywhere. Cover the entire stage. Extra points if you pull the shutter out of the fixture and can't get it back in. Step 7, edge sharpness. Make the edge either painfully sharp or so blurry it looks like a memory from a past life. There is no middle ground. Do not tighten the barrel knob too much. The designer is just going to change his mind. Step 8, the slinky focus. Instead of overlapping beams, stack them all in one spot to create a miniature sun. If the designer can still see, you haven't gone far enough. And last, step 9, the final check. Once you finish, relax, squint, and say, "Yeah, that's probably fine." Well, there you have it. A simple, clear, 9-step process to the focusing of stage lights. This has been a public service announcement from No More, 10 out of 12s.
And now, back to Light Talk, and I will take the last question of the day. This question is from a working lighting designer just starting out, who asks, How do you deal with requests for changes and revisions during the design process? I'm doing a project currently, and the constant conflicting feedback is driving me crazy. You know what? Welcome to the real world, working LD. I'm not sure if this designer is a newbie or just trying to ferret out how to make it without committing suicide. But frankly, I've learned over the years that if you ask 10 people their opinion about a work of art, you're going to get 11 different opinions. The design process is a collaborative thing. That's the nice way of saying that there will be many people involved with many ideas and many opinions, some of them dumb. You'll have to deal with producers, directors, associate directors, stage managers, scenic designers, graphic designers, costume designers, content creators, camera people, video shaders, stagehand, on-camera talent, and my favorite, the spouses of the on-camera talent, and even better, the parents of the on-camera talent. Then there's also the security people, and even the janitors have told me their opinions. I could go on and on and on, but you get the point. The biggest problem is everybody feels that they're all lighting designers. Because there's so many people sticking their nose into your artistic vision, there will be many rounds of feedback from many people. The big thing that I've learned over the years is it's important to grow a thick bark on your trunk and patiently is the operative word, take in all that feedback. You know, sometimes some of it may actually be useful. I think, and Steve will agree with me on this, I think, when you're 20 and you're in college, as far as you're concerned, your shit doesn't stink and there's nothing that you can do that's not exceptional. Then when you're 30, you start to realize, maybe some of the people have good ideas. Then when you're 40, you start realizing, yeah, maybe I could learn more from other people. Then as you get older and you get to the age I'm at, it's like, the hell with it. I'll just do as I damn well please. But the important thing when you're younger is how you handle the constructive criticism. That'll be the key to your success. You should take all the suggestions with an open mind, listen attentively, try to understand what's being suggested. Make sure that your response to everyone, even people with a dumb idea, think that they've contributed something to making this process a success. Then you'll get people saying, wow, that lighting designer really knows his stuff, and he listened to what I said, and I helped make this show a hit. That way, the collaborative process will include everybody, and everybody will be happier. The real reason it's very important to your career not to take criticism personally and see it as a learning opportunity. You know, at the age I'm at, I can say, even if what you learn from people you're listening to is nonsense. However, it's very important to your success to suck it up. Let people believe that they're smarter than you.
You're absolutely right. And there can be a financial side to this as well. I remember one time when Lumen brother emeritus Stan Kay was discussing something like this for one of his architectural projects, where they had brought on a consultant of some sort and kept asking for changes and changes and changes. And how many times does the architectural lighting firm redo all the drawings without charging the client even more money because
Sure.
of the consultant? So that might come up like if you're designing a studio.
100%. And again, outside of the janitors and everybody else that feels they're contributing, the stakeholders on any project has to believe that you're doing everything they're telling you, especially if they're signing your paycheck. They should think that you want as much feedback as possible, and you should keep asking for it, because that helps them think that they're involved in creating an aesthetically pleasing design. You know, again, I'll go back to when I was younger. I was doing a soap opera, and an executive producer would say, Dennis, what's that light all over David Canary's face? I thought that was a legitimate question or some feedback that wanted a response. So I would say, oh, it's the morning sun coming through the window, making it look like that David is looking out into the sunrise. And the reaction would be, I don't care, go fix it. And I would always be concerned because I didn't understand what the reaction or the feedback was until a wise technical director said, Dennis, they have no idea what they're talking about. They just want to feel that they're involved. Just go do something. And that's the important part. And it took me a while to learn that. And that's something that that our young friend has to remember, because the feedback is very, very crucial to the success of everybody's opinion of you as a lighting designer. Do you agree, or do you think I'm full of shit, Steve?
Can I have both?
Yes, you can.
The thing I think that's difficult is this, from my perspective, and I could be wrong about this, and I'll probably get lots of hate mail. This is not as predominant in set design and in costume design. Certainly, there's a process they go through, and this does happen. But by the time you get into the facility, that set and those costumes are pretty locked into place, and there's been a shop working on them, and months of fittings and building and painting, and it's kind of where everyone wants it. For some reason, lighting designers and sound designers and projectionists work in a different world. We are, in many cases, creating and editing things live in front of a room full of people who are just wanting to go on to the next light cue and want the process just to speed up and move on. Also, I think a lot of people feel comfortable walking up and saying, make it brighter, make it darker. They don't feel comfortable walking up to the set designer and going, can it be 6 inches higher, or can that brown be a shade closer to oak? They're just empowered. They see us working at something. They see a programmer working at something. They see something being created in Photoshop, and they think, well, heck, everybody's got an opinion on this. I think to survive, I believe you have to figure out what is background noise. Getting back to that TD who says, just go do something, press some buttons. And actually, I was working on something that I was trying to fix. And I just pressed a couple buttons on the console. I hadn't hit the execution button yet. And the director turned to me and said, that's so much better. And I said, thank you.
That's a good point, Steve. Separate the background noise from the good stuff.
From the good stuff, because there are going to be directors and camera people. There are going to be a lot of people who have really good ideas who are seeing it slightly differently than you're seeing it. I tried my darndest to look at a show the way an audience sees it. And I think sometimes that's how directors see it. And that's the right way to see it. So I try to listen to the people that I think I should be listening to. And, if it's the, I don't know, everybody's valuable. But if it's the dresser backstage who says, have you ever thought about a blue cyc? And there's not even a cyc hanging. Then I let that comment land where it lands, and I go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Thank you so much. And I move on.
Well, on that note, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again, you've spent another Wednesday morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check our website at lighttalk.org, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast, especially some of the things that I say. However,
if you do decide to litigate, you will have to deal with me, Snoot, from the Snoot Group. And don't get it twisted. Just because I married one of these losers does not mean I will go easy on you. So don't with me.
Light Talk, coming to you from the tropical paradise of St. Bart's, from the second largest state in the United States, Texas, and from Soho, in the international capital of the world, New York City.
Be sure to join us next week when we dive into more lighting shenanigans and serve up a fresh, piping hot casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
See you all next Wednesday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye.
Bye.